how did you find out there was a mine attached to the bottom of your car after Pat Finnegan was killed?
Well, I only read about that. Seriously, it was a story which came out in a court case that, I'm certain that there was collusion involved in the shooting of which I was the target, but that this was another assassination attempt. And the testimony was given by a man called Brian Nelson, and Brian Nelson was an agent of the British who had been given files and given lots of information and was explicitly involved in the killing of Pat Finucane. And just so that you know, Richard just told me as we were coming in here that the family of Pat Finucane were just given permission today by the British Supreme Court to appeal the decision that Canberra took, not to let them have an inquiry. So that just happened as we came in.
Gerry, some people in the audience don't know the horrible story, what happened to Pat in front of his wife, Bernadette, and his children. Maybe you could just briefly just put a perspective in what you're mentioning about with the appeal.
Well, Pat Finucane was a young guy. He actually went to the same school as me. I didn't know him then, or at least I have no recollection of knowing him. He was probably a few years younger than me. But he became a lawyer, and that would have been quite unusual for, it's not unusual now, but it would have been quite unusual then for a working class nationalist from West Belfast to become a lawyer. And Pat became a lawyer. And he was my lawyer. He also acted for Bobby Sands as well, who died on hunger strike. And he acted for many Republicans, but he also acted for Loyalists and for Unionists. And he developed a view that changes could be made by using the law. And he was really a crusader in that regard. That, if a person was being interrogated and wasn't getting their rights, then he would ensure that if he was acting for that person, that the police were made accountable under whatever the law was, even though it was a coercive law. And similarly, in terms of people who were being intimidated or anyway subject to pressure from the state, Pat asserted their rights legally. And in the course of all of that, he used to be told by some of the people who he was acting on behalf that the police were telling them that Pat Finucane would be dead, that Pat Finucane was no good, that Pat Finucane was a Republican, and so on and so on and so on. And then a man called Hogg, who was a British minister, made a statement in the British House of Commons in which he cast aspersions upon some of those in the legal profession. And that was taken by a number of people quite rightly to be referring to Pat Finucane, to another lawyer called P.J. McGrory, and to a lawyer called Oliver Kelly, who were part of that human rights cadre of lawyers which were starting to have an impact on keeping the British to their own laws. And then within a very short time, Pat was shot dead. His wife Geraldine, their children were having their dinner at home at the kitchen table, and the gunmen burst in and shot him dead. Geraldine was wounded. Pat was fatally injured. It then transpired that the weapon that was used, that the information that was given, that the people who were engaged in the actual shooting, as well as those who had directed them, as well as those who had armed them, were all working for the British State Forces. And that's now a matter of proven fact. The various reviews or other investigations, and remember, this was how long ago was that, Richard? So it's 1988, so
Sorry,
uh,
89.
89, so it's a long, it's a relatively long time ago, but there, the truth has a way of coming out, and these facts have emerged. So a number of people who were set up to carry out investigations said, like Stalker said it, Sampson said it, De Silvia said it, that this was a case of outright collusion. There's a strong suspicion, although it's never been proven, but it has been alleged that the decision to shoot Pat goes right back into the British cabinet, which is why the British have been resisting, one presumes. The family's called for an inquiry, and Geraldine Finucane has been campaigning for an inquiry. And the Brahon Law Society that Sean referred to, and other activists here in the States, particularly from the legal profession here in the States, have championed the case of Pat Finucane.
It's incredible, Gerry, that life almost makes a full circle. His son, John, and other children that witnessed their father brutally killed right in front of them over dinner. John became a lawyer, and he came very close to winning an election in the North not too long ago.
Yeah, the last election, John Finucane, who is Pat and Geraldine's youngest son, uh, John contested that election on behalf of Sinn Féin, increased our votes substantially in his district, and fell short just, I think, by 2,000 from getting elected. And I understand he's determined to fight it again when the chance comes up again, and would hope to narrow the gap the next time.